Chapter 346, Beaten Black and Blue. Lord Grimm was going to create a guild. When the news came, the top guilds spread the word at top speed to their core circles. Those who weren't online at that moment all received notifications through their phones. Even those who had been tucked in bed all nice and sound were immediately wide awake after hearing this news. This wasn't small news, especially to those who were competing for the dungeon records. If Lord Grimm actually created his own guild, he would certainly have the strength to compete with them for the dungeon records, and with Lord Grimm's fame in the 10th server, it would be extremely easy for him to create a very powerful guild. Even if the players who joined weren't good, they would still be able to support their dungeon team. The guilds backed by clubs had an innate advantage. However, at the same time, they also had restrictions placed on them because of their clubs. This was because their guilds could be considered as the clubs and the team's in-game representative. These guilds had to work hard to create a perfect image for themselves. Some of their more dubious activities couldn't be exposed to the public. For example, their great chase after Lord Grimm. That was already a fairly risky maneuver by the top guilds. During the chasing, the reason their players didn't wear their guild names was because they didn't want the 10th server players to see who they were. Luckily, at that time, Lord Grimm's group had just been lonely souls. Even though their maneuver hadn't been too honest, with only a few of them, they wouldn't be able to create any large discussion. However, Lord Grimm creating a guild was very different. If they chased Lord Grimm's team like they had done before, the rest of his guild would certainly see what was going on and know that their guilds didn't play fair and would even resort to using such despicable methods to suppress their opponents. In the past, against such opponents, the top guilds never directly showed their true face. They would raise a few accounts that hadn't joined a guild yet and then have them do their dirty work. However, Lord Grimm's skill and capabilities were something everyone thoroughly understood. Even their large-scale mobilization hadn't been as successful as they had hoped. Sending a few unorganized soldiers to bother them would only be sending them to their deaths. What do we do? Everyone was worrying over this question. Amongst these, the three great guilds were having the most trouble. Currently, the three great guilds and Excellent Dynasty knew what Lord Grimm's true identity was. In addition, they had all watched the All-Star Weekend's broadcast. Yi Shu had used Dragon Raises its head, a move that Han Wenking said could only be done by Yi Shu, and had received widespread acknowledgement for it, but they wouldn't have expected that Yi Shu's starting point for coming out of retirement would begin in the 10th server. Creating a guild would be a very heavy blow to these top guilds. As for those slightly weaker guilds, even though they also yearned for dungeon records, it could be seen from the results that those records mainly stayed in the control of a few guilds. Lord Grimm jumping in to add to the mess would definitely cause these top guilds to be filled with distraught. In addition, they knew that Lord Grimm definitely wasn't someone that they could mess with, but for those who didn't know Lord Grimm's identity, they all had false hopes. For example, when Misty Castle's Hazy Mist saw that Lord Grimm was interested in playing in a guild, he immediately asked him if he wanted to join theirs. But in the end, Yi Shu politely declined. Hazy Mist had even thought that it was because his offer hadn't been enticing enough and was pondering what to do next. Guild like the three great guilds and Excellent Dynasty, who knew the truth, completely gave up on trying to rope him in. Blue River ran to the Heavenly Domain to report to his guild leader, Changing Spring. Excellent Dynasty's Chen Yahui, on the other hand, uneasily went looking for Vice-Captain Lu Hao. Herb Garden's Plantago Seed had kept his distance after finding out Lord Grimm's identity and would only come out when there was a good opportunity. His plan was still the same, so he didn't say anything. Tyrannical Ambitions Cold Knight directly went to contact Yi Shu. Cold Knight wanted to cry, but no tears came out. The 10th server's pioneering turned out to be so unexpectedly difficult. This time, the person who was making things difficult for them was unbelievably strong. Cold Knight already felt that he wasn't a worthy opponent, but he still had to give it a try. God is going to create a guild, huh? Congratulations. Congratulations. Even Cold Knight himself felt that his greeting sounded fake. How could he have any sort of feelings of congratulation in his heart? But aside from this, he didn't know how else to initiate a conversation. Thanks, Yi Shu replied simply. He had too many messages to attend to. Do you have enough manpower? If there isn't enough, I can send over some help, Cold Knight continued with his fakeness. No need, Yi Shu replied. There was even a smiley face attached to it. Cold Knight couldn't find any other words to say. After pondering for a while, he decided to ask the question on his mind directly. God, what do you plan on doing after creating your guild? Ha ha, you should understand, Yi Shu replied. Of course, Cold Knight understood. With the subject at hand, he immediately reminded, God, you haven't forgotten our deal, right? Of course, I remember. We won't touch your guild's records. Cold Knight quickly received Lord Grimm's reply. His promise was the same as the one he had initially made. He even added the same straightforward emoticon face he had used back then. Though when he saw this reply, Cold Knight wasn't as happy as he was that day. Not touching their guild's records wasn't enough. This was because if Lord Grimm didn't provide their guild with guides, their guild would have no way of competing for the records. When that happened, even if Lord Grimm wanted to touch their records, he wouldn't be able to. The promise they had happily received seemed like insignificant words now. At that time, it wasn't as if they hadn't thought about the traps that came with the promise. However, Lord Grimm's levels had always been lower than theirs. As long as they controlled the records before he got to that level, then they would be fine. They hadn't thought that he would create dungeon guides. Cold Knight didn't know what to say. In theory, Lord Grimm hadn't broken his promise. Heavenly Domain. After Blue Brook Guild's Changing Spring heard Blue River's news, all he could do was sigh. Blue Brook Guild's 5 great experts were in a circle together. For a short while, they didn't know what to say. The news of Lord Grimm creating a guild was the same as if it were going to rain. No one could do anything to stop it. If it was just a normal expert creating a guild, they wouldn't be as worried. However, the one creating the guild was God Yi Chu. He had burst out during the All-Star competition and confirmed his identity with Dragon Raises its head. Because of this, his purpose for creating a guild obviously wasn't going to be simply for fun. His goal would be the same as the guilds backed by the clubs. Competing against each other couldn't be avoided. We'll wait and see what happens before we take action. In the end, Changing Spring could only give this suggestion. Club Excellent Era. This time, Chen Yahui didn't try to reach Lu Hao by phone and instead personally went to pay him a visit. After the All-Star weekend, Lu Hao felt as if his heart had been stabbed. Yi Shu's Dragon Raises its head had defeated Samsara's Du Ming. However, it had also left a deep traumatic impression on Lu Hao. Yi Chu was going to return. This was what many people, the pros, the media, and the fans, deciphered. And this was certainly not what Lu Hao wanted to see. At this time of uneasiness, Chen Yahui suddenly came looking for him and deliver the news of Lord Grimm creating a guild. Creating a guild, Lu Hao obviously understood the relationship between a guild and a club. Yi Chu showed that he intended to come out of retirement. Him creating a guild would implicate, could he be trying to form his own team? It's possible, Chen Yahui said. So he refuses to give up, huh? Lu Hao sneered. Chen Yahui felt a bit strange. When he entered the room, he saw that Lu Hao's expression was somewhat gloomy, but after hearing this news, he seemed to have relaxed. Does he really think that he can form his own team with his own hands and expect to compete with teams like ours, who have such deep roots? It seems to me like he's grown senile, Lu Hao said. With the alliance nowadays, it's no longer the era where it's possible to carry a team by yourself. Experts are flooding in. More and more god-level accounts are appearing. The competition is even fiercer than ever before. It seems to me like you'll have trouble even finding the qualifications to enter the alliance, Lu Hao laughed out loud. So you're saying that I don't need to worry about him? Chen Yahui asked. Yeah, but don't completely ignore him. Continue to keep an eye out, Lu Hao said. But with his new guild, our development in the 10th server will definitely face a huge obstacle. Chen Yahui was holding less and less hope for Lu Hao. He discovered that the two were gradually growing further and further apart. The two sides were no longer concerned about the same thing. Lu Hao only felt that Yi Chu wouldn't be able to rise back up, but during the course of all this, their excellent dynasty's development would certainly take a hit, yet it didn't even seem like that sort of thought had come across his mind. Chen Yahui knew that the guild's development was his responsibility. Lu Hao had nothing to do with it. He only wanted to see, one last time, if his former ally had truly cut ties off with him. Chapter 347, Guild Created. Chen Yahui's tone of voice changed, carrying more toughness and doubt. This was very different from how he usually talked with Lu Hao, who was able to tell. Lu Hao was also someone who thought hard, and he was instantly able to tell why Chen Yahui wasn't happy. He patted Chen Yahui and smiled, "Let's go find a place to drink. We can take our time to talk things over when we're there." Lu Hao didn't want to lose his ally. Chen Yahui understood this, so he didn't object. Thus, the two left together. In the game, seeing the craze brought out by Lord Grimm's announcement, the players didn't doubt that Lord Grimm's guild might quickly be the largest in the 10th server. After the announcement came out, quite a few players had already begun paying close attention to the guild page, waiting to see when Lord Grimm's guild would be created. However, even after the day turned dark, there was no sign of Lord Grimm's name in the new guilds list. In order to create a guild, the guild leader would present an application and 30 players would have to respond. If the guild was created, the players who responded would naturally become the first guild members. 30 players was the minimum amount of players required to create a guild. If the guild had less than 30 players, the guild would enter a 72-hour countdown. If the amount of players stayed below 30 after these 72 hours were up, then the guild would automatically be disbanded. Oftentimes, when guilds were created, the guild leader had to try and find some way to get 30 players to respond. However, with Lord Grimm's fame, let alone 30 players, finding 300 players to join wouldn't be hard. What everyone was worried about was whether or not they'd be able to get a spot. This was because once 30 players joined, the guild would be automatically created and there would be no chance to respond to the application. After this period, if they wanted to join, they would have to request the guild for an invite and wait for the guild members to approve. Usually, in a guild's initial period, if the guild didn't have much fame, numbers were more important. The more players, the better, but after the guild was developed, players would be filtered and quality would be more important. However, Lord Grimm's guild wouldn't be going according to the usual scenario. He had fame and he didn't need numbers to create a presence for himself. He could completely skip the first step and regard quality as more important. Because of this, being able to respond as one of the first 30 players was more valuable. Unfortunately, Lord Grimm didn't seem to show any signs of acting after making the announcement. The players were puzzled and in doubt, but at night, during the peak hours, Lord Grimm sent out the application and his guild suddenly popped up on the new guilds list. In an instant. In just that instant, the players who found out didn't even have time to spread the news, when the application disappeared. This was because, in that instant, 30 players had already responded and the guild was automatically created. It was only after the announcement of the guild's creation was made by the system that the players noticed. Happy. The name of the guild Lord Grimm created. Players began to request invites one after the other, while trying to figure out the meaning behind the name. The name truly didn't sound tyrannical and it didn't sound very impressive either. No one was able to deduce the true meaning behind it. In the end, they just regarded it as an expert having a different temperament than normal players. The attention garnered from Guild Happy made Chen Guo uncontrollably excited. In her eyes, this was an extremely impressive opening. Right now, Yi Shu was dealing with the countless requests. Seeing the mass of names, Chen Guo only regretted that they couldn't accept them all. The limit of guild members depended upon the guild's level. Level 1 guilds could only house a maximum of 100 players. Excluding the first 30 players who responded, only 70 spots were left. Yi Shu bitterly searched through the endless list of requests for players he was familiar with. Tang Ru, Steamed Bun Invasion. They didn't need to be said. Apart from them, old friends like Seven Fields, Sleeping Moon, and Co. decisively left their Full Moon Guild and requested for an invite after knowing that Brother Expert had created a guild. Cleansing Mist. After Yi Shu singled out the name, Chen Guo was shocked. She quickly reacted, "Is that Su Mu Cheng?" Yeah, Yi Shu nodded his head. Sigh, Chen Guo hated how she couldn't play with them in the 10th server and couldn't help but feel envious of how Tang Ru played shoulder to shoulder and chatted every day with Su Mucheng. Will she join our team in the future? Chen Guo asked. That depends on you. You're the boss. I don't have the money. Chen Guo was sad. She couldn't afford to pay a popular player like Su Mucheng. With her status, creating a pro team was definitely risky business. It was very likely that they wouldn't be able to last long in the alliance and would be quickly eliminated. Though luckily, with Yi Shu, she had a lot more confidence. If she had to manage everything herself, she knew very well that their only result would be walking out. Haha, take it slow. It's still early. Yi Shu was still laughing. Would Su Mucheng drop down a level just to join our team? Chen Guo's mind was in shambles. With Yi Shu, this was a possibility. However, she felt too embarrassed to ask him to do that, so she could only silently hope. Okay, I've added everyone I know. Yi Shu looked at this guild member list and checked again. Everyone he knew had been added in. The guild channel was bustling with noise. The newly gathered players seized the moment to get to know each other. Those who had gotten in by being the first to respond, but were low level, were feeling very uneasy. Seeing the long list of high-level players in the guild, these noobs were worried that they'd immediately be kicked out. There's still space. Keep on adding people. Chen Guo saw that Yi Shu had stopped after adding all the players he recognized. Don't worry. Let's not act impulsively. Let me see who I want in my guild, Yi Shu said. The high-level ones, Chen Guo said. It'd be best to consider their classes. If my guild has 100 clerics, that wouldn't be good, right? Yi Shu laughed. Oh, Chen Guo understood what Yi Shu was thinking. Are you thinking of having the classes in the guild work together as a team? I don't think I can get them to that level, but having a relatively good balance has its advantages, Yi Shu said. Chapter 348, New Players. Hearing what Yi Shu said, Chen Guo didn't say anything more. She simply sat there and quietly watched Yi Shu work. Yi Shu made a count of the levels and classes of everyone who had joined and then began skimming over the list of invite requests. Happy was currently a level 1 guild and could only have a maximum of 100 players. There were 24 classes in Glory. In addition, some classes chose different paths, so they would have a very different style. For example, for Ghostblades, Sword Demons and Phantom Demons could be considered two different types of classes. Another example would be Elementalists. They had access to ice, fire, light and dark element skills, but usually players would choose two elements to focus on. The number of variations they had were even more than Ghostblades. These types of variations couldn't be seen through merely by checking a character's level and class. Thus, Yi Shu could only consider the composition of the guild members as a whole. After Yi Shu was clear on the class composition the guild currently had, he began carefully accepting requests. New members continued to pour into Happy, but in the end, Yi Shu didn't add it to max capacity. This was because Seven Fields, Sleeping Moon and their group had just left Full Moon Guild. If they wanted to join another guild, they would have to wait 5 days, so Yi Shu left them a spot. Though for ambitious guilds, 5 days was enough time to level up the guild. Guild members could receive all sorts of guild quests. When they completed these quests, the guild would gain experience. When the experience reached 100%, they would level up. With every level up, the guild's maximum capacity would increase and they would unlock more guild quests and rewards. When the guild reached level 5, the guild could choose to acquire a guardian. There were different kinds of guardians, but the most common choice was the stat guardian, which increased the guild player's stats. From level 5 onwards, the guardian would gain 1 level for every 5 levels the guild gained. Players who didn't want to be involved in guild matters would join guilds because of the stat increase from the guardian. Top guilds also had stronger guardians because their guild levels were higher. In the heavenly domain, the top guilds backed by clubs all had their guilds at the level limit, level 100. And as a result, they had a level 20 guardian. As for normal guilds, they weren't like guilds backed by clubs, who could easily reach the limit by taking in their fans. In addition, their members weren't as cohesive or loyal. For these normal guilds, once their development reached a certain stage, there would always be problems popping up because of their large numbers, which would cause the guild to either crumble away or be stuck and unable to progress. Only a very small number of normal guilds were able to grow large and powerful and reach the level of those guilds backed by clubs. However, in terms of influence, there was still no way that they could compete with the guilds backed by clubs. Guild Happy was just starting. The guild had a long way to go before reaching the top, although their starting point could be considered to be quite good. They were only limited by the maximum capacity set because they were still a level 1 guild. If not, then with Lord Grimm's fame, who knew how many players he could have gotten to join? Guild Happy's invite request was incredibly long. Even top guilds backed by clubs like Herb Garden and Bluebrook Guild didn't have that type of momentum. The entire reason the top guilds were fighting for the dungeon records were to have the sort of status Lord Grimm had in the player base's eyes. The craze brought by Guild Happy showed exactly why these dungeon records were so important to developing guilds. Yi Shu finished choosing the members. Right now, the around 90 players were all online and were all extremely excited to be there. The chat in the guild channel was a complete storm. The players were already beginning to get together. Some were shouting to go to the arena, some were calling people to dungeon together, some were asking others to help them finish a difficult quest. Yi Shu really wanted to say something to the guild, but he was having trouble finding a good opportunity to do so. Hello, hello, Yi Shu typed. He then followed up with a giant wall of emoticons to instantly clear the screen. Everyone else's messages disappeared. Their entire screen was filled with Lord Grimm's name as well as a bunch of random emoticons. The guild members were shocked and immediately quieted down. How many of you have just started playing Glory? Yi Shu asked. A bunch of replies came out and, in an instant, Yi Shu was unable to find his question anymore. He could only make a guess based on how fast the messages were scrolling down. It was practically 100%. Yi Shu wasn't surprised at this result. If they were old Glory players, then in the new server pioneering stage, they probably ran over to join the top guilds, which were backed by clubs. Joining these guilds in the new server wasn't very hard. Or they might have been like Seven Fields and Sleeping Moon, who came to the new server together as friends and would have already decided on a guild to join beforehand. When he made the announcement, those who were able to request an invite were the stragglers who weren't in a guild, and the probability that they were new players was very high. Seeing all of these new players, Yi Shu switched how he would speak. Our guild has been created. But because it's only level 1, we can only have 100 players max, so a lot of players who wanted to join weren't able to join. In the guild, everyone can take guild quests. The rewards aren't bad and, after completing one, the guild will get a certain amount of experience, helping the guild to level up. Only when the guild levels up will more people be allowed in. From level 5 onwards, we can have a guardian that'll help increase our strength. Sure enough, this sort of very basic knowledge of guilds was new stuff for these new players. After hearing Yi Shu speak, quite a few were asking where to get the quests from. For content they had never touched before, new players were always filled with curiosity. They immediately called out to each other to do the guild quests together. The enthusiasm towards the guild's development was enough to make any guild leader shed a tear. Chapter 349, Rapid Growth. Getting from level 1 to 2 would always be the easiest. After about half of the guild quests in the first wave were completed, Guild Happy reached level 2. As long as a player sent a request for an invite, the player would always remain on the request list, unless the player suddenly joined a different guild, in which case the player would be automatically deleted from the request list. When the guild hit level 2, Yi Shu opened up the request list and accepted another batch of members. In the blink of an eye, Guild Happy was now an almost 200-player guild. The second wave of players acted pretty much the same way as the first wave. After the guild leader explained the basic information about guilds, they enthusiastically ran off to start doing quests. Level up, add. Guild Happy rapidly developed in this way. The system would also make an announcement whenever a guild leveled up. The quick leveling only made everyone more excited, and with the endless list of requests, the guild was guaranteed to reach its maximum capacity with each level up. More and more players began bearing the Guild Happy tag, and soon, the entire Glory continent had players rushing to do guild quests. All of those big guilds saw the scene. The system making announcements one after another made them feel extremely envious. If the normal guilds felt envious, then what would the guilds backed by clubs be feeling? In their eyes, Guild Happy had already become one of their competitors. Seeing their rapid development, saying that their members all had low levels as comforting words wouldn't change anything. They had to take steps to do something about it. The guilds backed by clubs had differences, as well. For these types of difficult situations, the majority of guilds were used to waiting and seeing what the three great guilds would do, but this time, the three great guilds showed no signs of movement. The guilds discussed amongst themselves. They knew that Lord Grim had contested with the three great guilds before. Herb Garden could be said to have gotten away lucky, while Blue Brook Guild and Tyrannical Ambition had taken a severe blow. Right now, they were at the level 40 stage. In the other servers, they were great guilds with powerful influence, but now, not only were they unable to make a name for themselves, they were struggling to defend their reputation. Their pioneering in 10th server had failed quite miserably. The other guilds weren't doing much better, either. This was because the momentum during the early stages had been stolen away by Lord Grim. They were only doing better than Blue Brook Guild and Tyrannical Ambition. Not only were those two guilds not progressing, they were actually declining. Could they be scared? Many of the guilds, who liked to see what the three great guilds would do, had these sort of thoughts. However, they didn't know that the reason the three guilds weren't moving was precisely because they knew just how strong Lord Grim was. They couldn't help but be cautious. The guild leaders from the three great guilds had actually already convened to discuss what to do. The three leaders weren't the 10th server guild leaders either, but rather the real bosses of the three great guilds, Blue Brook Guild's Changing Spring, Tyrannical Ambition's Zhang Yu, and Herb Garden's Arasema. The 10th server's pioneering had frightened these top guilds. Even worse, with them there, their statuses were nothing compared to the opponent they were facing. Sigh, what should we do? Changing Spring took a random 10th server account to use and met up with the other two. They could only watch as announcement after announcement came, telling them of Guild Happy's level ups. Their hearts were filled with anxiety. Right now, dealing with Lord Grim isn't the issue. Our issue is disrupting their guild's growth, Zhang Yu said fiercely. He really hated the guy, whether that be because of his support for his team, or because of the several defeats by Lord Grim's hands. No sh*t. The biggest problem now is how are we going to disrupt their progress, Arasema said. Silence. If they had a plan, they wouldn't have had to gather together to discuss. Kill them and strike terror in their hearts, Zhang Yu said. It's useless. We can't fight them directly. How many open accounts do you guys have in the new server? At most 20, right? Right now, their guild already has 400 players. With the number of accounts at our disposal, what good would that do? Changing Spring said. And if we do that, it'd be very easy for them to guess that it was us. No, Arasema said. What to do? Zhang Yu was bitter. Since they were backed by a club, they had a reputation to maintain, which restricted them from openly attacking others without reason. Maybe we can send some of our open accounts to other guilds and have those guilds clash with Lord Grim's, Arasema said. Maybe it'd be better to just directly plant spies into Lord Grim's guild and stir up trouble from within, Zhang Yu said. How could it be that easy? Changing Spring bitterly laughed. Don't forget who we're up against. What type of tricks has he not seen before? Planting spies into Happy to stir up trouble won't work. Planting spies into other guilds to cause trouble might work, though. When Lord Grim created his guild, a lot of players may have left their guilds to join his instead. There will be a lot of guilds with open spots. Let's consider using these guilds to cause trouble. As long as we can make Guild Happy an enemy of other guilds, we'll have good reason to wage war on them, Changing Spring analyzed. We can still send some spies over to Happy and sit there temporarily. When a conflict breaks out, they'll stir up fire from the inside, Zhang Yu said. Plus, with Guild Happy's rapid development, their guild members' egos will be inflated. If we're lucky, we might not even have to instigate anything. Their own people might cause trouble for themselves. It'd be even better if that happened, Arasema said. Yeah, let's have our planted spies do that, Changing Spring said. The three continued to talk. Their minds began to gradually open up and more schemes poured out. They were, after all, experienced players. The reason they were able to develop into the three great guilds was partly because of their team's strength in the Pro Alliance, but also because of these three players. In terms of the struggles between guilds, they were absolutely the top of the top experts in the field. They could only step down gracefully against Lord Grimm for the dungeon records, so they thought of plans that didn't involve direct confrontations. After a long discussion, they created the plan and the rest was up to the guilds to carry out. The three stayed in contact, while giving orders to their guild's players. On Blue Brook Guild's side, Blue River received Changing Spring's orders. His expression immediately darkened. "I thought we weren't going to compete with Lord Grimm?" Blue River asked gloomily. "That was then. This is now. He's created a guild and has become our direct competitor. It's not possible for us to avoid him now." "Do you really think him creating a guild is just for fun?" Changing Spring said. Blue River didn't say anything. He understood very well. It was just that he had a fairly good relationship with Yi Shu. He had a good impression of him. Fighting and scheming against someone who was originally his friend didn't make him feel good. "The three great guilds are all doing the same. We'll be in touch with other guilds, too, so just relax and do it," Changing Spring said. Blue River closed the message in silences. After pausing for a moment, he let out a long sigh and then began doing what he had been told to do. His first task was to sort out all of the open accounts that weren't in Blue Brook Guild. His second task was to begin gathering intelligence to see how many players had left their guilds due to Guild Happy's creation. These guilds would definitely be unhappy with Lord Grimm and Guild Happy, which was exactly what Changing Spring and the others wanted to take advantage of. As for Herb Garden and Tyrannical Ambition, after receiving their orders, they all began working to carry them out, as well. At this moment, the system made another announcement: "Congratulations Guild Happy for reaching level 5. From creating a guild to reaching level 5, their rapid development made the other guilds want to cry. Guild Happy was celebrating. These new glory players didn't really understand much about guilds, but from what their guild leader said, level 5 seemed to be a very important level. At this level, their guild could have some sort of guardian or whatever. A lot of players had already gone to search what this guardian was and they naturally yearned for it. Seeing that their guild had finally reached level 5, everyone began waiting for the guardian to descend. "You can get a guardian now." Seeing the guild's rapid development, Chen Guo had been watching excitedly the entire time and reminded Yishu when she saw that the guild reached level 5. "Yup," Yishu nodded his head. The guardian couldn't be obtained just by hitting level 5. A quest had to be completed. The quest was very simple: beat the corresponding guardian. When the guardian was subdued, the guardian would give the guild its blessing. Chapter 350, High-leveled characters. The Stat Guardian was the most popular guardian amongst players and it truly did give the best benefit to a player's stats. It was equivalent to obtaining extra stat points, which the player could then freely choose to use. The Stat Guardian gave 8 extra stat points to players for every level it gained. At its maximum level, level 20, it would give an additional 160 points. Its impact on a character's strength couldn't be ignored. Even for normal guilds, the few extra points were enough to create a noticeable difference in strength between two players with the same level and equipment. It was because of this that very few players weren't in a guild. Even for the pro accounts in the Pro Alliance, in-game, they had to have the guild's name tagged onto them. There were not any players that did not follow this rule. This was, of course, done for those extra stat points. Guild Happy had reached level 5 and completing the Guardian quest became an urgent priority. Yi Shu didn't try to take on a new and original path. The Guardian he wanted was naturally the Stat Guardian. After receiving the quest, Yi Shu immediately began to gather people. Players who wanted to challenge the Guardian for the quest would be sent to a dungeon. Inside the dungeon, there was nothing else there but the Guardian. The dungeon limited the number of players to 20. Yi Shu, Tang Ru, Su Mucheng and Steam Bun Invasion would obviously be a part of this team. Chao Yifan's 1-inch Ash was still being leveled by someone else, so they couldn't contact him. 7 Fields and his friends still couldn't join Happy yet, so they couldn't be sent into a guild dungeon. Besides them, there was concealed light. However, concealed light's skill level in actual battle truly was extraordinarily bad. Even though Yi Shu had helped him find some ways to practice, he had not been practicing for long, so Yi Shu had no idea how much he had improved. Yi Shu didn't know anyone else, so he chose the rest based on their class and level. When forming the base for the 20-player team, the higher the level the player had, the better. Blue River suddenly gave a puzzling look. After seeing the announcement that Happy had reached level 5, he immediately called for the open accounts to move out and apply to enter Happy. He had even personally switched to an open account to request an invite from Happy. The infiltration went smoothly. Not long after requesting an invite, he received a notification from Happy. And almost simultaneously, the other 3 open accounts also received notifications. Their infiltration had been successful as well. Blue River immediately checked what the guild channel was chatting about and discovered that most of them were talking about the Guardian. A level 5 guild talking about Guardians wasn't anything abnormal. However, soon after, he received a team invite from the guild's leader, Lord Grimm, causing him to be surprised. Blue River didn't know what was going on, so he chose to accept. After joining the team, he found that there wasn't a single team, but rather 2 teams, in order to form a 20-player group. From this, Blue River instantly realized what Lord Grimm was planning on doing. He then saw that Blue Brook Guild's other 3 open accounts had also joined the team. One of those 3 players was very confused. Seeing that all 4 open accounts were here, he hastily messaged Blue River in surprise, "Have we been caught?" This question caused Blue River to panic, but he quickly calmed down. He told him not to worry and then went to check the 20-player group's structure. Lord Grimm, Soft Mist, Cleansing Mist and Steamed Bun Invasion. These names weren't new to Blue River. Seeing these characters, Blue River felt a large amount of pressure bearing down on him. He knew that if these players were to compete for dungeon records, no one in the 10th server could compete with them. And now, they were gathered together. Although, one good thing was that Steamed Bun Invasion seemed to be very under-leveled compared to the other first-string characters, and Blue River was immediately able to figure out that it was the result of him not participating in the Christmas event. Lord Grimm's team also had a Ghostblade character. Blue River remembered that the character's name was 1-Inch Ash, but he wasn't in the team right now. Blue River opened up the guild member list and prepared to do a search. But as soon as he opened it, he noticed the default ordering for the guild member list. The first column was by rank. The second column was by level. In Happy, apart from the guild's leader, Lord Grimm, who didn't have a class, the ordering was done from highest level to lowest level. At the top was Lord Grimm, Soft Mist and Cleansing Mist at level 39. And beneath them were those 4 open accounts from Blue Brook Guild that had infiltrated Happy. Blue River understood why they had been invited into the 20-player group. It was because they were already the highest level characters in Happy. This type of situation was quite good for them. A higher level meant a higher status. Even though they couldn't enter Lord Grimm's inner circle, they were still in a higher position than those low-level players. Blue River did a casual skim over the rest of the names and was stumped for words. The players' levels in Happy were unexpectedly low. The character Blue River was using and the other 3 open accounts were all around level 36. And the number of guild members in this level range was extremely few in this guild of 500 players. The number of guild members above level 35 was 19. Everyone else was below level 35 and, near the end, there were even some level 20 players. Blue River was astonished. He had predicted that the average player's level in Happy couldn't compare to their Blue Brook Guild, but he didn't think that there would be such a large disparity. In their Blue Brook Guild, level 35 and above players held the majority, while players below level 35 were the minority. With Lord Grimm's fame in the 10th server and the craze over Happy's founding, he had the qualifications to compare with their top guilds. But in reality, it seemed like a gathering of a bunch of level 30 players. What was the reasoning behind this? Could he be trying to establish the players' loyalty to the guild by raising them up from lower levels? Blue River could only guess. He then opened up Happy's list of invite requests and discovered that it wasn't that Happy didn't want to pick the high-level players, it was that there simply weren't any level 35 and above players that had signed up. Those that were above level 35 had already joined a different guild or were open accounts, similar to the one Blue River was using. Blue River was, after all, an experienced player. After a quick analysis, he was able to quickly understand the situation. This was because of the Christmas event disaster, as well as a type of restriction due to the top guilds. In Blue River's eyes, level 36 players weren't considered high level. Right now, if a player wanted to join Blue Brook Guild, the minimum requirement was to be level 35. The guild members who currently weren't level 35 had joined the guild in the early stages, but hadn't been able to keep up with the fast leveling speed. However, for the rest of the 10th server, level 36 was where players would go to Fire Forest and soon graduate to challenge Sin City. For those who hadn't participated in the Christmas event with Lord Grimm, these players were at the forefront. If Yishu hadn't used such a valiant strategy for the Christmas event and the top guilds had only leveled the normal way in Sin City, then they would only be at level 36 as well. These players would already be considered the elites of their guild, the top players in the 10th server. Because of the Christmas event, such an abnormal occurrence happened. If not for that, then level 36 would have been the level range where they should be at. After them were the level 36 players, who would have been amongst the highest leveled players if the elites from the top guilds hadn't leveled with Lord Grimm with the Christmas event. After the Christmas event, they leveled up once or twice more. Slightly below those were where the majority of the players from their top guilds were at. To put it simply, there were very few players around level 36 in the entire 10th server. In addition, most of them were in the top guilds. As for those without guilds, those who were at this level range probably didn't want to join a guild, so they obviously wouldn't have thought much about Happy's creation. As a result, in the end, these open accounts from their top guilds, possessing the level of their normal guild members, would immediately stand out in Happy. After understanding all of this, Blue River was suddenly taken aback after seeing the list of level 35 and above players. In the 10th server, there really weren't many players around level 36 that sought after Happy. Could it be that all of these level 35 and above players were the same as him and were open accounts that had been sent to infiltrate Happy?